here. And I'm going to go live on Facebook. Coming. Share on a page. Here we go. Just preparing the live stream. It should be there any second. Just got to add a title. Oh, go live. Let's go live. It already says it's live, but then it's showing me another window. So I'm hoping it's live. Let's see. All right. Okay. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Cosmic Intelligence Agency's next Facebook Live report. I'm just checking that it is actually showing up live here. Yes, it is, so I can turn this off. My name's Julia Simas, and today I'm joined with a special new agent, Adam Gainsburg, Agent 46, from, where are you, in Las Vegas? Yes? Yeah. So welcome, Adam. So good to have you here.
Thank you.
Joining us and also joining the agency as an agent, because people like you, and there's so many wonderful astrologers, but what I think connected us together is the love of the real sky and the stars, and following the sky out there, and you've been very good at that.
Well, thank you very much.
And teaching, I think, the community quite a lot in your, with your research on the cycles of Venus and Mars, Mercury. Oh, hang on. Hello, Andrea. Are you meant to be there? Let's just see.
This was a little accident. I'm sorry.
I'll just stop your video. Sorry. And the things that we've learned from you by being such an avid researcher and a night sky follower, really. What got you into your astrology right at the beginning? Obviously you've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, at the beginning it started me. Well, I was going to say it started with me because I was interested in, how do I say, going beyond the reality that I was living. I wanted to know more, not just learn more and expand upward, but I wanted to get deeper. I wanted to get into more truth, more of the real stuff. I wanted to see behind the curtains that I wasn't yet willing to see. So that's really where how I started. So it was very much energetic and very ceremonial and very sacred. And then gradually over time, as I, got better and better, took some certifications, studied, learned, read tons of books, I found that I had to place my body out underneath the night sky and morning sky. I had to be there. Otherwise, just, picking up a paper, looking at the chart and going, oh, that means this, that means this. It was just half the picture. It wasn't the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, the work that we've, kind of always, let's say, reported on with the CIA is people thank us so much for just, let's say, instead of saying Mars is in Taurus and, it means this and this and this, it's like Mars is bright in the sky, or Mars is sinking into the sun, or, and telling the story of what it's visibly doing in the sky. How many people have thanked us for, let's say, helping them get out there to look and watch and observe. And from that observation is, in fact, what astrology is all about. What it ends up sort of meaning, like the meaning of what's going on right now.
That's right. I could not agree
from
more.
The visible sky.
Yes. This thing about signs, I mean, this is kind of a crazy thing to say, but the whole idea of signs, the amount of time we've been practicing signs in house-based astrology is so small compared to how long we've been looking up.
Yeah, right. Of course, yes. We've been looking up for forever.
For forever.
Before we even knew what it was or what the cosmos, well, in a sense, it's hard to know what we knew back then,
It is.
But we all have that awe of belonging, to something so much sort of vaster and more, beyond us, and as a collective, as we all belong in the cosmos somehow.
Indeed.
So we're looking forward to what you're going to share with us today, because we're concentrating on Mars retrograde on the South Node.
Yes.
And how incredibly, let's say, rare is that, which makes these times so unique for us. Like Mars retrograde isn't rare. It happens every 26 months or whatever. But there are a few rarities to this that we talked a little bit about last week in our triple eclipses webinar with Gemini and Liz. And if anyone hasn't seen that, it's in our thread here on Facebook Live, so you can go back to it. It's on our website as well. So we don't want to, we will be going over the Mars aspect of that, because I was going to call you Mars. Mars is the expert.
Thank you very much. I'm honored you'd mistake me for Mars. I must be doing something right.
yeah. But importantly, how rare. One of the things that we do know is that the rarity of Mars retrograde in Aquarius to start with. Yes, and I'm sure you'll go into that more. Yes. Of course, many of us are very aware how bright and red and close to the Earth Mars is right now, which makes this also such a special time. Adam's going to go a lot further with that. So I'm just going to share my screen a little bit just to recap a few little things from last week before we get into Adam's wonderful teachings and research of what he's done. Just, this kind of meme that I put together is, it's like when we look at this, Mars at its closest at an eclipse on the South Node, again, the rarity of this time and how and what that's meaning for all of us somehow, not just, collectively on the planet, perhaps, we'll talk about that later, but, personally, like things for myself are coming up that I've never thought of before or I've never kind of really experienced before. And it really kind of like we're observing as these things happen, we observe what's happening. And I encourage that with everyone out there. Observe it for yourself. Like, what is this doing in my Aquarian zone?
Great one.
For myself, and we learn from these transits. We learn so much from these very rare transits about, instead of reading it, from a book that this is supposed to be what's happening for me, just be very observant of what's happening for you. Like, I'd say go outside and talk to Mars, like I'm feeling this, or I'm, beautiful. It's such a paradox too, Mars retrograde on the South Node in Aquarius. It's like, Aquarius is cool, the cool sign. Mars is the hot planet. Retrograde makes Mars, retrograde just, what do you call it? Means most obviously in astrology that, a planet's slow and it's not at its best, but it can be actually more effective in a sense sometimes when retrograde. Yes. But then, as Adam will, point out even further, it's also a retrograde Mars is closest to the Earth and very visible. So as opposed to Mercury or Venus being retrograde, like the outer planets from Mars and outwards, we've got the planets at their brightest. And that's, to me, quite an interesting thing that I know you've researched a lot. So we'll talk about that with you later. And this image to me sort of, my husband took it a while ago, but it really kind of represents in a more collective sort of way, Mars is retrograde, also out of bounds and in Aquarius. And it sort of brings out that renegade in all of us, like where can we push the boundaries more somehow that we haven't had the guts to perhaps do somehow. Maybe, again, it's a bit of a once in a lifetime type of transit to actually get a little bit further into our future. That's what I keep saying. Like, it's Aquarius. It's what are we doing about our future and what's stopping us from all of that. And again, what we've looked at last week was, the squares from Uranus to this eclipse, and the opposition, of course, in Leo, and gathering all that, what's important for for me with you, for me with our stuff, you know, what we share together and what we, you know, and are we progressing into the future together, or just generally. So I thought that was a great picture for that. I just want to bring up a retreat that we've got coming up also, Adam, and one day we'll have to get you out here to Australia to see our skies. Have you been to Australia before?
No, I've not.
No. Okay, yes. So although our next retreat is called Celestial Secrets, it's actually in a deep tropical jungle. So it's not so much about the stars, but it is during Venus retrograde. And of course, we can climb a hill to see the stars. So do join us for anyone that is, you know, in Australia or coming this way. It's going to be amazing. We've got a day pass as well on the Sunday, which when we've invited Jane 108 from Mathemagics to talk about the intersection of sacred geometry and astrology. And if anyone follows him on Facebook or doesn't yet, have a look at Jane 101 Mathemagics. So we've got quite a treat coming up. And I'll be talking about Venus, the Venus cycle on that day as well. Tomorrow, for CIA members and for anyone that wants to join, we have a webinar coming up with Maurice Fernandez, all about the 12th house. He's written a book on Neptune, the 12th house, and Pisces, and we're honing into the 12th house because it can often be very much misunderstood about, you know, being quite negative, you know, like if you've got 12th house planets, you know, you're kind of lost in the world and, you know, all that type of thing, or it's got some very negative connotations, or can do from the past, doesn't it, Adam? Like, you know, that it's the house of self-undoing, it's the place of being locked up, or, you know, that type of thing. So we're going to shed some light onto the 12th house with Maurice, who's done a lot of research. And this is the picture I found for you. Mars out of bounds. Mars out of bounds in Aquarius on the South Node. And what this reminded me of, and I haven't done enough kind of work on it yet, but it made me look up, because one of our agents, Agent 50, some of you will know him, he, what am I saying here? On our star camps, now this is how it relates to you, our star camps, the theme song for the CIA became Space Oddity, you know, ground control to Major Tom. Okay.
Yeah.
And so when this picture came up, I had to have a look of when Space Oddity was actually first launched. It was July the 11th, 1969. Chiron was in Aries. There was a few, like the chart's really quite interesting. But more importantly, Mars was out of bounds. And I just thought that was perfect for David Bowie's Space Oddity. Mars out of bounds, you know, Major Tom floating off into, you know, into space and all that type of thing. It was in Sagittarius, though. It wasn't Aquarius. But anyway, just a funny thing to look at. And just, you know, again, what we talked about last week is the eclipses of this, you know, the eclipses of this year, and this one now, the second last one here on this list, the total lunar eclipse. That is the highlight of, I suppose, this time and energy right now.
Indeed.
So we're going to get into that more with Adam right now. And Mercury retrograde in this time frame as well, starting. So we'll talk about that more a bit later. But so for anyone that wants to, let me just stop that. Stop. How do I stop? Oh, stop share. That's right. So for anyone that wants to know more with the CIA, Adam's just joined us. So he will be, let's say, providing some extra content to our membership over the coming time. We've got amazing content gathering there. You can learn so much. You can learn every month with us by following transits on a deeper level. We do these live things as well there, of course, for free, but also we get a specialist webinar every month. So Maurice tomorrow, and coming up, Kira Sutherland on the Houses of Health in August, and in September, Patricia Walsh. So the goodies keep coming, and I encourage you all to join the CIA and, yeah, help us grow as well and gather all this wonderful content. So just the short intro from me, Adam.
Thank you.
So how about over to you? Because, yeah, very interested to hear more of this amazing sort of idea of Mars on the South Node, retrograde in Aquarius. Thank you, 46. And I'm right here if you need to, kind of ask me anything or, so if you want to share your screen or just begin, I'll get myself off, I think.
Can you see, Julija? Is this?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Can.
So hello, everyone. My name is Adam Gainsburg. I am so pleased to finally be a member of CIA. And I love that this is the first way that I'm meeting the community through this particular material. I asked Julia when best to just mention an event I have coming up, and she said probably at the top. So just don't want to belabor the point, but in actually just a few weeks, in the middle of August, myself, Gary Caton, Julene Lewis, and Andrea Michelle Kennedy are presenting our own conference here in the central part of Colorado in the US, and it's all about the sky. Gary's going to be talking all about his latest Mercury work. If you haven't checked out Gary's latest book on Mercury, the first of his 3 is awesome. I'm going to be talking about the Mars phases. Julene's going to be covering all about the nakshatras, and Andrea Michelle will be covering all about the Saturn phases. And it's 4 days, and it's going to be in a wonderful resort, a hot springs resort, and the place is pretty much full up, but you can always find places around or bring your own camping equipment or something. But it's going to be really, really wonderful. So if you can join us, if that's of interest, check out skyastrologyconference.com. Also, if you want more about my Mars and Venus work, the website is simply soulsign.com. So I'd like to start with a question here. Where's the living sky in our astrology today? When I say living, I mean not the stagnant thing up there that is just kind of lifeless. Where is the living sky in the contemporary practice today? And I'm going to suggest there she is. In ancient times, this was known in Egypt, at least, as Nut, a female goddess, and we are looking at her body. And that's a very powerful thing to take in transcognitively and take that in meditation and absorb that when we're looking out underneath the night sky, the morning sky, the midnight sky, we're actually absorbing the light and the information and the organization of ascension being, if you will. So I just want to put out this one basic idea here. This living sky, my idea of a living sky, it operates in our consciousness before, behind, and beneath all our horoscopic considerations. In other words, we get the living sky before we get the learned meanings of signs, planets, houses, angles, aspects. Okay? And this living sky is a context. It's like the frame around the painting before the painting is painted. Okay? And I call this an intelligence, which holds and infuses our chart work with this primordial intelligence. If these ideas intrigue you, I really would encourage to go outside and start spending some time under morning and evening skies. Today's topic, or tonight, or wherever you are listening to this, watching this, is Mars. So here's Mars. I want to just say here very briefly, Mars correlates with the fundamental masculine principle, the primordial animating impulse of life force in all things. That's Mars, the activating agent in all things alive. Mars is also about externalizing things, externalizing ourselves through our actions or our desire. Okay? So that's where we're kind of coming from here. And then in general, Mars correlates with all these various things. Most of us on this call or watching this are very familiar with Mars in its meanings. Fertilizing goals, preparing for actions to be taken, meeting obstacles and the resistance to those goals through overcoming them, staying the course. Improving is a big word for Mars. Improving the effectiveness or performance, real-time adjustment to unforeseen factors, exceeding expectations. Mars can also correlate with going beyond. I know this is often correlated with Jupiter or in some ways Neptune, but Mars's actions taken on the ground in real time are often seen as excessive in a negative way or exceeding expectations in a positive way. And Mars is certainly about completing or accomplishing. So if we play around with the glyph here, and we say that that's the glyph for Mars, and then let's say here, we then remove the chevron, the Mars helmet, which used to be a cross, and we put it over Mars as to signify something higher, something implied bigger or larger, and then we remove Mars's body entirely, we now have what Mars's cycle looks like in our skies every 26 months. This is the Mars cycle. And essentially, Mars conjunct the sun here, starts the cycle. Mars heliacally rises here as a morning star. Mars waxing square the sun here, station retrograde here, oppose the sun while retrograde here, station direct, waning square, heliacal setting as an evening star, and then conjunction to start the next cycle. What we're talking about today, and the energy that we're all in right now as a planet, is coming up on opposition. So this is phase 7 of my system of 13 Mars phases. At this phase, this is called the transcendence phase, and I'll talk about that in just a bit. First of all, Mars is opposite the sun, closest to Earth, as Julia mentioned. Closest to Earth, far from Earth, are one of the 5 or 6 sky factors that I work with and that I teach on. So just like when we're thinking about round wheels in astrology, we talk about sign and house and aspects. These are each chart factors that give rise to the meaning of a planet's position for us astrologers. But in the sky, we have sky factors, and one of them is this Earth proximity. How close or far a planet is very, very important. And this is what it looks like from a superior heliocentric view. This is what we're approaching here. When Mars is opposite the sun, look how close Mars is to Earth, as compared with how far Mars can be all the way over here to Earth. So when Mars is here, it's what I call Mars's strongest field effect. The field effect is what is the agent or the catalyst for Mars's stronger effect on Earth now when he is close to or at exact opposition. Okay? And at this phase, which I call transcendence phase, here's a very brief description of what this Mars opposite the sun means. Fleshing out and refining our personal intentions or goals. This could really be like a waking up to what our personal intentions or goals via Mars. Learning to be unfiltered in one's deeper calling. And this next idea of having no choice, what I mean by that is more of a destiny sense, not a victim sense at all. More of like, I've got no choice. I've got to do this. I have to do this. That's Mars opposite the sun. Facing lack of confidence, right? That could also be a more of a psycho-emotional effect of Mars opposite the sun. I have no confidence. It's like things are so in my face, I don't know if I can move forward. Things seem to be so overwhelming, I'm losing my confidence. Also, challenged by issues of being invisible, overwhelmed, or ignored. Now, this might seem ironic or contradictory because this is when Mars is brightest. So why wouldn't Mars be brightest create the effect of being invisible, overwhelmed, or ignored, or marginalized? It's because now, at this point, the sun, when it rises, destroys Mars's visibility. So it's like, and this is what I've learned, and what I'm sharing with you here, my observations here, are not just me making this up. I've been working with the Mars and the Venus and the other planetary visible synodics for a long time, and these come from a lot of observations from many of my from all my clients and the celebrities that I've done research with. When Mars is opposite the sun, what happens is it's like there's no place to hide. And when there's no place to hide, we're just exposed. The feeling of uncomfortability or vulnerability or fear when we're exposed is the fear of being overwhelmed. It may not sound logical, but that's, the psyche always works in polarities. Whatever we're afraid of, the source of that fear, or whatever we're angry about, the source of that anger is always the polarity underneath it, one level deeper in the psyche. Okay? There's also a tremendous siddhi, S-I-D-D-H-I. There's a tremendous gift that's awaiting us when Mars is opposite the sun, and that is the gift of receiving direct knowing, gnosis, unmediated by our personality, our local intellect, or what we think we're capable of or have access to. which is often very too limited for who we really are, right? Okay, so I just want to go back here. I realized, so when Mars is opposite the sun, like he is approaching very quickly now, which will be next week on the 26th, he's closest to Earth, as I mentioned. He's at his fastest retrograde velocity. This is very, very powerful to sit with, especially as astrologers. Think about Mars retrograde. Now think about Mars at his maximum backwards speed. I mean, geocentrically, backwards speed. And that creates a kind of, Mars hates to go backwards, hates it. But if he has to go backwards, he wants to go backwards very, very fast. So there's a kind of zone that he kind of gets into here. And this plays out creatively in our creative lives. It can play out psychologically. It can play out sexually. It can play out in how we spend money. It can play out in all kinds of ways, depending on where Mars is on our charts. So when Mars is closest to the Earth, he is fastest retrograde. He is also highest and brightest and visible for the longest amount of time. This is when Mars is opposite the sun, this is known as his acronychal rising, which means that when the sun is setting in the west, Mars is rising in the east. So that means, I'm going to do this kind of amateurishly here, but as sun is setting, Mars is rising, the whole night Mars is visible. And then Mars will set, its acronychal setting, when the sun is rising. So we have Mars fully demonstrating himself the entire, from evening through midnight through morning. He has what I call command of the sky. And so this is another thing where Mars has like free reign to play out what he is doing, to play out his agenda, to exceed expectations, as I mentioned, or to express the more shadow, the more unconscious sides of his nature. It all, of course, depends on us, right? Okay, so one of the things I found with people, both natives born with Mars opposite the sun, but also people with Mars very bright and visible, let's say within, 3 to 4 weeks before opposition and 3 to 4 weeks after opposition, is this issue of invisible, overwhelmed, or ignored. There can oftentimes be a psychological need to overcompensate for that sense in the background. Even though Mars materially has full reign of the sky, visible, bright, we can see his redness. I mean, it's an incredible sight, like we're all experiencing, I hope, and enjoying these days. But that can also bring up, like with so much visibility and exposure, there can oftentimes be this undercurrent of, I'm afraid to be visible. I don't want to be seen or exposed that much, okay? So now let's move now here into more of the topic of what we're talking about, which is the dynamic, the alchemy of Mars and the nodal axis, Mars and the south node. Okay, so here is the full schedule of this spring and summer, or this fall and winter, or let's say fall or winter and fall, depending on which hemisphere we're looking at here, of Mars with the south node. And where we are today, of course, is just a few days before here. So we're right around here, where retrograde Mars is conjunct the sun, conjunct the south node, and that will happen at least in Eastern time tomorrow here. Okay. This is the whole schedule of when it's happening. I want to point out here that this Mars opposite the sun is going to happen after the second conjunction with the south node. Here's the first. After the second, when he's retrograde, and before the third, when he's direct again. And I'm gonna speak to that very specifically, because this placement, when Mars conjuncts the node, there will, and retrograde, it will always be 3 passes. When there's 3 passes, Mars has to fall in between the first and the second, or the second and the third, or just before the first, or just after the third. So this is a very important aspect or factor in delineating this. Okay. So essentially, the Mars nodes. Here I'm just talking generically. When we talk about what's the fundamental Mars-Venus dynamic, what's the fundamental Jupiter-Neptune dynamic. The Mars nodes function is to evolve our participation, Mars, actively participating in our own evolution. Now, baked into this combination alchemically in all human potential is to greatly expand our understanding of just how co-reliant on and co-affected by our evolution is with that of everyone else, both individually that we're in touch with and collectively. This is very, very important. I mean, it sounds maybe a little generic at first blush, but I really want to encourage you that this Mars nose dynamic is like taking this idea of evolution and really, really throwing it in our hands and going, it's entirely in my hands. It's entirely up to my level of participation in how much I'm going to become really the person that I want to be or am meant to be, okay? Realizing that our own unique journey is closely related and dependent actually on that of others will completely, I mean, not realizing it and really getting the import of that will expose any separation, arrogance, or suppression of our uniqueness. Sometimes we hide, we humans, we hide behind, oh, I could never do that. We hide our evolution behind that, or we hide our evolution behind, yep, I've achieved the top level of my area of expertise or the way I want to live. I've got nothing more to learn. I've got nowhere more to expand into. And that's just simply untrue. Okay? So this Mars nose dynamic is hitting these key points, okay? Psychologically, spiritually, and evolutionarily. Okay, so I talked about all this. Here's the chart for next Thursday when Mars is exactly opposite the Sun. Okay, so this is going back to the Mars-Sun opposition. And you can see Mars here has already passed the south node because Mars is retrograding past 5 into the 4-degree range of Aquarius. Okay, so this is the chart of next Thursday. And you can see here that Mars is on the south, Sun is on the north. Right, now, just because Mars is crossing the south node doesn't have anything to do with an eclipse. But the fact is that Mars is crossing the south node. Mars is opposite the Sun that he does every 26 months or so, 24 to 26 months. And we're in eclipse season right now. The combination of those three independent astrological factors creates the incredible opportunity we have now. And I would go back to the prior slide and just remind that the incredible opportunity we have is to really look at our lives and look at what ways are we being lazy? What ways are we overextending? Because if I'm overextending myself, I'm not truly participating in my evolution. I'm burning the candle at both ends. And if I'm doing that, it means I'm not really available to have clarity of mind and clarity of purpose because I'm more stressed out. There's more tension I'm working with. So these are decreasers of our participation in our evolution. So it's incredible time, these three factors, to really look at what next do I want to do? What from the past that I need to gather back? How am I dreaming too small? What am I closed to that I can now be open to, Aquarius? Like, where is my tribe? And who are they? And how do I communicate with them? And are they really my tribe? Or am I attracted to them because it's just my image of what I'm here for and not what my Martian impulse, my Martian wisdom is telling me? Okay? All these questions are in here. So the Mars lunar node dynamic is a catalyst for exposing how our actions and our underlying motivations are in or out of alignment with our purpose. Okay? This complex signifies the legitimacy, awareness, and maturity of the reasons for our actions and choices. If you take away nothing from this talk today, I would invite you to just contemplate with this, or in our tradition, the astrological tradition, to consider it, because the word consider etymologically comes from to sit with the stars, considere. So I would ask you to consider the legitimacy, awareness, and maturity of the reasons for our actions and choices that we're making now. If we're set about making big changes for ourselves now, is it legitimate? Is it the time for it? Does it have legs? Is it based in is it based in reality? Is there awareness about it? Do I have awareness about this? Or am I just shooting from the hip? And am I sitting in more of my maturity as myself? Or am I reverting to old ways of making decisions when I was younger, less mature? Okay, that would be the one thing I'd ask you to take away from this. Okay, so here's just repeating. Baked into this combination, Mars lunar node, specifically the south node, is the potential to realize just how mutually reliant and affected our evolution is with that of others, both individually and collectively. I'd like to say something else here. Because Mars, let me go back to the chart, because Mars is on the south node side of the nodal axis, and my bias or my lens here is very much nodal. I work a lot from the lunar nodes in my counseling work with clients and couples. That there's a direct implication here of a potential or an opportunity or a door opening, if you will, a karmic door opening to get and receive and absorb anything from our karmic past, anything that has been kept kind of in the blind sight of our view of ourselves and our conscious awareness. Anything that we've more suppressed into our subconscious, anything we don't want to look at, is specifically might get acted on at this time for the rest of this summer or winter, depending on where you are, without even realizing it. So if you're looking around and going, God, I can't believe these old patterns are coming up. I can't believe that person from in the past is showing up. Or, wow, I had this dream about these people that I haven't thought about in 30 years. I would correlate that directly to this powerful Mars closest to Earth in eclipse season, Mars on the south node. Okay, so now I want to get more to the kind of the meat of what this Mars, retrograde Mars conjunct the Sun, after the second conjunction with the south node and before the third. And this, my comments here over the next slide or two are more intended to apply to mundane matters, even politics these days, where things are going, even financially, economically. An initial exposing of a secret agenda to maintain superiority over or separation from others. So we get exposed to our own personal or mundanely a loosely coordinated efforts amongst various players of a secret agenda to maintain superiority or control over others. This is the classic definition of an Aquarian shadow. This is using Aquarius for nefarious purposes, for unconscious, selfish purposes, right? This secret agenda is based on ideology. It is not based on objective facts. Though these days I see more and more literature, especially with the acceleration of technology and promises of future technology, to be the reason why we need to do these things, take these extreme measures now, because look where technology is going. We need to not be behind the curve here. And that's actually coming from an ideology, not an accurate and more mature assessment of objective facts. Okay? Sorry. Okay? Also,
that idea, sorry, Adam, it just, that slide that you just had there, or the
yes.
Aquarian shadow, it's like the Trump and Putin meeting that just happened, isn't it? Yeah.
Bingo. Bingo.
You know, like, what are they up to? Is their agenda? It is not the collective one. Anyway, I just kind of wanted to bring that up. It's just so,
I love it.
I'm looking at it going, that's the secret agenda. Yes.
Bingo. You absolutely, that's exactly it, Julia. And let me say also, just to further iterate that, I recently read an article by a man who's very well known as a super duper expert on technology and predicting trends and how technology will change culture and human behavior. And he writes this article, a blog post actually, and he describes how he was hired by a company that he had never heard of They paid him an exorbitant amount of money. They flew him to a place that was super secret. They needed 2 hours of his time in one afternoon, and the next day they flew him home. And these were 5 super duper wealthy individuals. And they wanted to know how they could maintain their literally multiple billions of dollars across their various properties that they owned to protect all the physical possessions that they had in these various complexes when the mass populace would come to kind of storm and try to, because food was going to go scarce.
Wow.
And because water wouldn't be drinkable anymore and all this. That's all they wanted to know from this guy.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I had written this bullet point, oh my gosh, probably back in May when I was preparing. So when I read this, I'm like, this is it. This is happening. There are some very wealthy, very powerful individuals and organizations who are totally playing out this agenda, like you say, like
sure.
Like the two of them.
The shadow side. And isn't it, I mean, it's amazing when we think it, like, you know, writing astrology, it has to be, you know, it's often, you know, quite a bit before the event and all that sort of stuff. And a lot of people out there will be very much knowing that, you know, the copy's got to be done a month before it's actually in the paper or whatever. And you write these things not really knowing, and then you see it happening in the world. Like, you know, it's going to be related to these themes, and then there it is, you know, like, wow. Here is the story that is just so representative. Mars retrograde in Aquarius. Whose agenda?
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. Oh, sorry. Back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. So, second bullet point I like to make on this topic is a feverish attempt. Now, don't apply this bullet point here to what Julia and I were just talking about the powerful and the elite and the rich. Think about how you have an aspect of, even if you don't have Aquarius planets, how do you play this out? This making, your agenda to maintain separation from something becomes exposed, and then in response to that exposure, like being caught with your pants down, a feverish attempt to either like keep the secret, put the focus away over there, or cover your tracks. Okay, and this will show up as strong defensive reactions, and this one particularly will be such, and this is kind of like a prediction, if you will, this will be such a consistent and recognizable excuse that governments, municipalities, police forces, here in the United States, for example, state governments or city governments will use technology and the threat of terrorism, the threat of drug dealers, the threat of whatever that they are wanting to point to as the reason why to maintain our defensive position. It is a fact that, let's see, I have their stat here. Yes, in the United States, there are, of the largest cities in the United States, the largest 100 cities in the United States, 35% of those cities, their police forces are armed and trained in tactical battle techniques, and they have all the military gear and vehicles to go along with that. That's what I'm talking about. It's like this defensive reaction to prepare against what's going to come. And I'm suggesting that underneath all that, quote, objective fact about, hey, this really happens, we really do need to be protected, we really need to defend our way of life, underneath all that is this secret agenda to maintain superiority over or separation from others. Okay? And of course, the other side to do would be more of like maybe, well, is to feign indifference. Oh, it's no big deal. Doesn't affect me, passing it off. And this is the classic definition of dissociation. Okay? So this last bullet point, I hope it's not confusing. People, individuals, group efforts, like social activist movements, initiatives, etc., they check out. Bye-bye. They either go off the rails completely into extremism, or they just disband. So efforts that we can take in material ways, not just sitting and meditating, but material activism, don't have as much of a support now. I know it's going to sound counterintuitive with Mars in Aquarius, spending all this time in Aquarius, retrograding and then forwarding and then direct back through Aquarius. Mars super high and bright during eclipse season. But I do see initiatives, like I said, people, group efforts, and initiatives leaving or having no teeth, essentially. But what I do see along with this is more of them popping up and less of them having teeth to actually make changes. So that's what I see happening here. It's like the numbers of them increase to like make a change, make a difference. I just recently read something about a man who is one of the most educated and informed economists, and he refuses to put out his research for money. And people of his caliber make millions of dollars a year or more just to put out his opinions and his research backing it up. And he refuses to create a subscription system. He refuses to have it like a pay-as-you-go. He just keeps putting it out for free, because of this exact point. Again, I wrote all these slides a while ago, and I just recently read this. This is like an affirmation. This guy, on some level of him, sees all this and goes, I'm not participating in this. So he keeps putting out this wonderful information that's very well researched, super duper on point and accurate. Yet he's not falling in the Aquarian shadow of needing to separate from. He's like, here's what I've done. Here, everyone use it as you will. And that's an example of the Aquarian light, the Aquarian, more conscious, more evolved expression. Okay.
That's perfect. Thanks.
Yeah. Reconciliation or new agreement of understanding between the parties, any parties. Let's say we're talking about you and your spouse. I really want to make sure that when you're hearing this, it's not just political. It can also be right at home. Reconciliation. Okay, Mars in Aquarius, super high and bright for long periods of time, closest to Earth, on the South Node. Reconciliation and understanding between the parties can result if they put aside or transform the shadow of dissociation, as I mentioned. And this will require a new disposition of transparency and honesty. Now, in order to go from dissociation to transparency, you need to have found more self-love. I'm not talking, new agey stuff here. You need to have a profound more love and loving acceptance of yourself just as you are. That's the way you get here. Because if you don't have more love and acceptance of yourself, you're going to have to go back to ideology, which then is ignoring everything below your neck. And that is more just dissociation waiting to be exposed later. Okay? And this is really where the true dream of the Aquarian dream is, right? Like tribe, one world, one heart, one humanity kind of thing. It comes from radical amounts of self-love, self-acceptance, and self-creativity. Reconciliation can also happen through an unforeseen agent, Aquarius, bright, high, eclipse, unforeseen agent or an event interrupting any games that we're playing with ourselves. Again, these shadows of Aquarius, one-upsmanship or feigned apathy. Also, if there is an earnest examination of my past actions and the results. An earnest one, not just ticking off boxes going, okay, yes, I've done the exercise, but really more like a genuine examination of one's actions to see what can be improved upon. Okay. And also, as is the case with all Aquarian evolution, there's always, when Aquarius inside of us evolves, there's always an expansion to include more different kinds of people, more people, or more different kinds of activities, or more focus on what we're really doing here. It's always, Aquarius evolving is always an increase in how much is included in our Aquarian activities. Whereas Pisces, or any sign, when you evolve that sign, the increase is in a different way. Something else increases. But with Aquarius, it's always including more of human diversity. Right. Okay. So here are my kind of summary statements here. The Mars nodes complex potentiates a courageous leap deeper into more vitality, and meeting any challenges or need for healing which results. This complex drives us to realize where we are choosing from inside of us. Are we choosing from our head, our heart, our emotional body, our mind only, rather than what we are choosing? Okay? Is the more important factor if we want to evolve. This is a little bit maybe contrary to what might be thought of or expected. The Mars node will always produce eventually that where we're choosing from inside of us, which always determines what we see, is actually more important at this time during eclipse season than what we are choosing, what we're putting our mind to. Because as all of us know, eclipses, when they happen, take at least 6 months, more likely 2 years, up to 2 years, to actually fully materialize the changes and the downloads, if you will, that we got at the eclipse time. So it takes time for these changes and these new information transcognitively to materialize in us. Okay? The nature of Mars, celestial line with the nodal axis, is an opportunity to activate our soul level desire for what we want to achieve and experience, which is always deeper fullness of our being and our doings. So I'm trying to play with the idea of being who I am and doing who I am, doing what I am. Mars plus nodes always produces a greater fullness because there's more honesty, because there's less of our suppression. That suppression has been brought to the light of our awareness, and we can heal or do whatever we need to do with that to empower ourselves. Okay? So Mars nodes also, it signifies how our authentic masculine, this is men and women equally, this is not maleness, masculinity, how Mars and the nodes signifies our authentic masculine as fueling all of our activities towards achieving our dharma and contributing toward a better world, right? So Mars gives us the legs, the stamina, the intelligence, the heart, and the discipline to contribute to a better world through our participation in it, right? That, to me, is the combination of those two together. Okay, everyone, so that's my few ideas here and presentation. I'd love to take questions or get into a description here. I'm going to stop my screen share so I can see you, Julie.
Wow, Adam, that was fantastic. Just so much to so perfectly aligned to what, you know, the themes of that, and, you know, well looked into. I'm going to have to listen back to all of this again, and I encourage everyone else to as well. Yeah.
I'm honored. Thank you.
Because it is such a potent time, and, you know, to bring it all out like that, that it is, you know, what we talked about before. It's a perfect time to get these things aligned.
Yes.
You know,
right? Now's the time.
Now's the time. Yeah. It's a rare time, and, you know, the South Node connection to what we're pushing forward or have forgotten also, perhaps, with the South Node. Yes. You know, what societies we want to live in.
Yes.
What is the future of our societies, and are we going to follow these puppet shadow people, or can we do more? I actually think 2020 is very much about the undercurrent rising a lot stronger as well, you know, as the top crumbles, or, you know, as a bigger picture type of thing, because it's not just 2020, it's been building to that. It's quite a significant, you know, anyway, it's a topic for another time, but
it is. I love that you brought that in. I wasn't going to mention that, but I've been looking at the 2020 a lot more recently, probably since April or May, because I didn't want to look at it like a year out and really go into it. I wanted to wait until a little closer, and I found that this time now, like you were saying, this summer is the time to do that. It's like we're getting a kind of Martian prelude to that 2020, when, wow, the aspects that are the transits that are going to happen then, wow, that is something like, and like, it's like, in some ways, in our deep work collectively, societally, Mars is, this sounds silly, but Mars is easier to deal with. Mars is just like binary. It's just like, take the action and find out. Do it and find out. With enough of that process, you learn, wait a minute, now I have some cognizance. Now I have some awareness. with which to make those new choices about what my doing is going to be. But then when we get to 2020 with the Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto, oh my gosh, like that's
we've got to know what we're doing.
Exactly.
We've got to know what we're trying to build. You know, so from the ideologies and looking into the future, you know, how is that going to happen? And in the end, it all builds up to that. And this is part of it. This is a big part of it, isn't it? Yeah.
And one more thing I just want to share here, and I'd like to very much include myself, like my personal self, in whatever I'm doing, because me, you know, us astrologers standing on the pulpit and espousing astrology to people who want to know more is one thing, but participating in it is really where astrology transforms. My natal Mercury is 5 Aquarius.
Oh, right.
So I have to be sent, you know, when you reached out and said, hey, you want to do something this summer? I'm like, yes. Like, you know, like I have to do this now. Right. Like,
well,
I owe it to
you're
myself.
certainly a good voice for what's happening now with your Mercury there.
Yes.
Where'd you say it was? 5 of
Aquarius.
Oh, Aquarius. Oh, yeah, right there. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, you certainly are a voice to help us really understand these times. So we're going to get you for more information as much as we can, Adam.
Speaking of that, if anybody wants more, they can absolutely.
We'll link up to your website.
The website is soulsign.com, soulsign.com, and you can sign up for the newsletter there. And we put out a lot of information about all kinds of stuff. And my website is we've been building the videos and the articles and the audios and the interviews for quite a number of years. So there's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, great. Well, let's just have a look at a few questions I've got here. As you said, 5 Aquarius, my Venus is 5 Taurus. And as you were talking, you know, I can't help thinking of Uranus being the modern ruler of Aquarius, and Uranus is in Taurus. And we're talking about, you know, making things much more real than they have been and being true. You know, being exposed, as you're talking about Mars being exposed, you know, it's kind of in the light and it is vulnerable because it's got the spotlight and it is retrograde. But it is about the truth. It's about being true to so many things. And that's what, you know, if we can be consciously aware of what we're, let's say, hiding away from, not being true to ourselves, not being true to our calling, which is bringing in the Leo, you know, sun aspect. All of those things are so apparent in this T-square, you know, of eclipse.
of an eclipse. When Mars, you know, I forgot, I'm just realizing I didn't say this. When Mars is retrograde, one of the most positive things we can do for ourselves, I mean, not just positive, like feel good, but actually taking a literal step towards improving our lives, is to consciously retrace steps. Go back over things that I've done before, or that I've been a participant in a group effort, to go and retrace steps and see where could have things been different. Where did I lose awareness and go back to my habit, for example? Or I was really conscious of the whole thing, but I never stuck around to celebrate. I was too busy with next pieces, next step. When did I not celebrate? And so Mars retrograde is always go back over past actions, retrace past actions, and then review and see what you can learn from that.
Yeah. And it is all about the learning. The reason we do astrology, what we can learn about, you know, our steps and how to take them better or make them better, make them more progressive, more activated, all those things, you know, all those things that,
all those things.
Yeah, all those things. And I love how you brought up, you know, consideration comes from the word, you know, sidereal, stars.
Yes.
And consciously consider what's going on.
That's right.
Know, at this time. So, it's so easy in this kind of let's say fixed cross aspects to blame others, you know, like it's their fault and it's their stuff, and we do get caught in other people's stuff in this way, and we have to be just as responsive to others' needs at this time as well, don't we? Because everyone's going through it, not just you.
Exactly. That's such a good point. That's the rub. It's both sides. That's such a good point. Not to react, but also like, hey, everyone else is going through the same thing here. And, you know, it's like sometimes even though you care for someone, if you don't have the space in you, don't say anything. Like if someone that you care about is going through something and you're not really there, not your job to take care of them if you're not, can't come from love, if you can't come from, presence.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
that's why.
I just, what I was thinking of as well is something that Caroline Casey always, or not always says, but has said many times: cool head, warm heart.
Yes.
It's so Aquarius, Mars retrograde.
Totally.
Keep it cool, but keep the love, keep the heart warm. And we're learning so much from these times, like always. So,
yes.
yeah, look, you really brought up some fantastic things, but I keep getting distracted from what people are saying. Basically, there's many people saying, wonderful presentation.
Oh.
Who is this guy? I'm just kind of going to field a few things, some good comments you can look through after this, Adam.
Okay.
I love you, family, Gainsburg. Just see if there's any questions. And then the people that are actually on the webinar, thank you for being here. People just saying this is amazing, great information. I love that. Retrace past actions. I tend to never celebrate my efforts or actions. Interesting point as well, because this is a South Nodal thing. Remember what our resources are. Things that perhaps we've forgotten that we have or are talented in. Leo, Taurus, the resources, the talents that we all have somehow. And how are they putting out into the world?
Exactly. And, on a personal level, I think this eclipse is giving us the imperative. I think we're all, in our own way, getting some kind of our version of a download of, I've got no choice but to start risking more of me in the world. Risking more of me. So assuming we're all adults here, not children, we have many, many, many years of experience of ourselves. We know what works and what doesn't. But this is now risking more of me, more of my authentic, more of my gifts that maybe I'm not even that confident in. And that's the kind of thing that I think we're all getting here. What next am I not meant to risk? To put out there.
Perfect. Well, it's like that the Guy Fawkes mask, or the anonymous mask. I showed it before. Mars out of bounds, right? This is also this time to sort of push beyond what you would think you're capable of, and that pushing beyond is like, we every time we go past the boundary, it's never really perhaps as bad as we thought it was, or as it's just, oh my God, I did that.
Exactly. My God, I did that. That's Mars in Aquarius, super high and bright. Oh my God, I did that. And if I can do it, you can do it. And if we want to do it together, let's do it together.
Yeah. So how significant is it as well then, as a collective kind of intention? Again, this is why I brought up to 2020 we've got to push past to think, instead of where we're held up, we can see it all go, look, things not progressing, there's still the puppets are ruling the world, and how can we get beyond this or over this? We still got to keep pushing, as a silent sort of mushroom energy. We don't have to rule the world, but we're just doing things, like mycelium does, connecting the dots of what is better out there. Somehow.
Brilliant. You mentioned something earlier. Mars' incredibly rare transit through Aquarius. Think about that. I think Mars is the least frequently in Aquarius.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How is that played out? Oh, less tooth or gritty people's actions. It's like, that's now what, it's not only Mars through the Aquarius. It's Mars stationing, going back and through it. And by the way, everyone, Mars spends the most amount of time retrograde, like in his retrograde period. He is the longest in his retrograde period than any other planet. So it's the most amount of time, Earth days.
Yeah.
So now, by the way, also, I wanted to say also that, as you mentioned on the top slide there, Mars is out of bounds now. Okay. That's the declinational measure. Okay, Mars is at near his maximum south latitude as well. So he is so far off the ecliptic than nearly he ever gets.
And very bright for us.
And very bright for us.
Down here in the south.
Yes. So what you get is, you get this out of bounds Mars, where the kind of thing like anything's possible, including extremism and catastrophe, unexpected. But you also get this Mars. So I did this whole thing with latitude, planetary latitude position, which is when a planet is in south latitude, it's trying to find and relate better and improve how we've done things. How do I say? In the past, lack of a more better way to say it. What's more deeply familiar collectively? North latitude is where we're heading collectively, and on the ecliptic is consensus reality. Okay, so with Mars at declination extreme and latitude extreme, that's what I'm saying. Risk
extreme times.
Right.
Extreme. Right. But as you also mentioned that, you know, eclipse times as well, the potency of right now will not be revealing itself to everyone. Some people will be getting the download and know exactly what this means. Actually, someone just said here, you know, that what we've just talked about has really, now I just can't find it, able to join, you know, that's really revealed what their journey is and the decision they have to make. So,
yes,
you know, so some people that will be immediate kind of download, oh, I got it. For others, it won't be so quick and revealing. It will take time, and again, that's got to do with so many other factors in our lives as well. One person's asking, can Adam speak a bit about those activist groups with no teeth currently? What does he think will happen when Mars goes direct? Some really effective action finally.
When those groups with no teeth now go direct, well, some of them are going to kind of have a come to Jesus moment, like are we really committed to this? Because if we are, we know the next step. And then the members who don't want to go that far, no thanks, I'm out. I just wanted to walk around the street peacefully and post picket signs and speak and repeat the party slogan. You know, the people who really want to do something, they're going to have the space. I don't mean space. I mean the inner room to actually take a step. And some of this stuff is going to be extreme. I mean, I see the Me Too movement as some of this. They are trying their absolute best. Now we can all sit back and look at it and look at it from a like a cultural a social standpoint and say, wow, they're kind of missing a bunch of, like, they're not really in touch with their shadow. But look what they're doing. Look, I mean, it really got a voice going that wasn't there before for ever.
Yeah. Exactly. There's things happening. Things are changing. Yeah.
Right. And they're not always the most efficient. Sometimes they're just meant to get us from step 1 to step 1.5. That's all they're meant to do.
I think Mars retrograde on the South Node too is like the impatience that we might be feeling like, oh God, you know, this can't see the future so clearly, or it's taking time, and just everything, you know, being more patient just generally. It can be very, very frustrating, but we're redoing our website, so there's just, you know, days I have to go, it's all right. It's all right. You know, I mean, all those things, it's perfect time to do it actually for us. But, you know, one thing that came up for us, we were talking about the exposure to EMFs and, you know, being perhaps very much more mindful of in that Aquarian zone, Uranus in Taurus, how much we are exposed to electronically as well, which we probably don't notice how much it is actually infiltrating us, because Aquarius is about, you know, invisible energy as well, and how the whole body takes in all this energy as well. So anyway, it's just, there's so many levels of all of this as well.
Oh my gosh.
And and for people to explore their own kind of experience, and you'll have aha moments after watching this, I'm sure. They go, oh, aha, oh my gosh, here's another thing happening. Let me just go through this quickly again. Yeah, so someone has been very encouraged by your presentation to make some decisions, which is just great. Mind-boggling presentation, spoke to me to make a decision as well. So look, if we've done a good job, Adam.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Right on my Mercury. I really, really, you knew exactly when to invite me.
That's how the agency works, right? There's some special qualities we have here that we can't explain. It is, that's how it comes together. It works, so let's say cosmically like that, and we are not somewhat driven by drama and look, if it's going to work, it's going to work. If that happens, it happens. We are a little bit more organic like that than sort of, we got to do it, we've got to do it. So sometimes we're here and sometimes we're not. It's just the way it goes.
Sorry, if I could say one more thing, it just occurred to me, and I don't want to bring up a whole other topic, but I do want to mention, because people are listening and are going to watch this later, another manifestation of this Mars and Aquarius close at extremes, latitudinally in declination, is people coming together in the mind meditation, psychic, sixth chakra space to effect fields of coherent energy based in love, peace, gratitude, joy. And a lot of people are doing that now in small or larger pods. Yeah. And this is another completely apropos signification or manifestation of this signature that we've been talking about here. Yeah. Tribe coming together, but not in the material sense, more in the collective. Because if I'm having an emotional reaction, and somehow I could be in a room with people, even just half of them know me, the other half don't. Know me and love me, care for me, want me to, there's no ground for my emotional reaction to keep going. Because now emotional reaction, which is this little bubble, it's like trapped history, now is being held in this coherent energy. And eventually the trapped bubble, which is like this, closed off, now starts to open up and get included. Now I start to get clarity and insights and stuff. So I think a lot of that also is going to be happening as well.
And, Mars is not emotional as such, and neither is Aquarius, but the heat is helping things rise.
Yes.
It's helping things rise that need to be expressed somehow. The heat rises, and so it's got to come out somehow. So hopefully it's nicely. And that's the other thing we can learn, how to be much more cooperative with others as well. The astrology world is ignited, I think, these days, and fabulously slow. When we started this years ago, it was to get the intentional astrology out there, and we rejoice that there's so much of it now. So not saying we're the only ones that started, I've said that before, but it was the timing of when we began and all that type of thing that, now, we can celebrate that astrology is out there, and now we need to look after it a bit more.
Exactly, precisely.
Because it has kind of gone, it's everywhere, and it's like, it's unresponsible in so many ways, somehow. Not that we can ever keep a hold on that, but this is
I totally agree. We can't ever keep a hold on it. We can do whatever we can to increase the level, the quality of people practicing.
Yeah.
And the integrity of the organizations.
Yeah, exactly. So the working together, I know that you're part of a lot of organizations, so am I. And yes, it is about, working together to keep astrology, with good integrity and proper learning and good foundations. And so we're really happy that you're with us, because you've got a lot to teach. And next time, well, I suppose, coming up is, we'll get into Venus, because Venus is the next retrograde, isn't she? Topping off this square now that we're talking about.
This is my book on Venus, and I would love to go into Venus phases with the IA. That would be fantastic.
Actually, we'll have to do something with that, because I know in your book you go through all the Venus phases, and I've done my own sense of research. I haven't written a book, but what I've found out with the Venus phases as well, in relation with your work, I'd love to go through that with you one day too.
Oh, I would love. Oh, maybe we could. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll organise that, Agent 46.
Yes.
And then just look forward to doing more with you, because really I love the information, and it's very agent-like, the information you gave us today as well. You know, being, you know, what's behind the scenes and all that kind of thing.
That's me. That's me.
And again, using astrology to be much more aware of what's happening in the world, and our place for what and how we can help along with that. Yeah.
Yes.
Is the agent work.
It's so important.
Yeah. So really happy to have you here, and I encourage you to go through the comments.
Okay, I will.
Down the track. I'm just looking at on the webinar. Someone just talked about the hugging saint. I know we can go on forever, but I better let you go. It was among thousands of people with the hugging saint. That sounds interesting.
Oh, Amma. Yeah.
Oh, Amma. Yes. Yeah. And then something else that came up for me the other day was watching, and again, it was probably not, I don't know the astrology of the time. I actually haven't looked it up, but the singing revolution that happened in the Baltic states, where 2 million people lined up to actually have a revolution, and they were singing. So they weren't fighting, they were singing. There's so many things we can do that does not involve the guns and this and that. That's the old way. And so, the spirit of Mars, if you're going to be a warrior, you need to know how to command your tool or your sword, which it used to be, and guns are too easy to use. So
exactly. The moment we pick up a gun wanting to kill the enemy, we've already lost.
Yeah.
We're already out of our sovereignty. Yeah. The Mars in Aquarius, is, and I used the word creativity earlier in my presentation. I don't just mean painting paintings and having creative expression personally. How creative, how ingenious are we available to be now to meet the demands and the challenges of our time now? Like, that to me is activism.
Yeah, that's
digging
right.
Deeper. Yeah. It's also kind of connected to what I was talking before about risking more of me. We really have to think out of the box.
Out of the bounds.
Out of the bounds.
Out of the bounds. So, that's right. To solutions to a whole lot of things, that the same old way to, perhaps we have tried to change things maybe the same old way for now. Again, it's quite crucial that we think out of the box and
out of the box now. Yeah, and you know what I see.
And there are ways. I totally believe there are ways to do these things. Yeah.
I'm sure I'm not the only astrologer doing this, but I often look to the quote industry of astrology as markers for what I see transit-wise is happening. And I see so much. I mean, you started CIA, so that was so prescient, so ahead of its time. And I mean, you guys, we got our stride. I mean, I remember meeting you at the 2012 UAC, and you were already fully going and a fully operating thing. But I see astrologers now doing this more, getting out of the box, getting out of the bounds of how to do astrology, how to wake people up, or how to present my research.
Well, I mean, the whole idea, in a sense, came because social media was born and all that type of thing. And we saw that more activism happening. But what I found with astrological organizations was either astrologers working on their own, or the organizations being very insular. And it was kind of like, it was utilizing the social media platforms and stuff to sort of, with the name, the CIA name, to go beyond that. And I know that, we have introduced so many people that would perhaps sit on the sidelines. Yes. What is this thing? What is this astrology? And I know that we did a lot, or encouraged a lot, by talking about what's going on in the sky.
Yes.
Okay, like I said at the beginning, and people go, thanks for explaining that. Thanks for explaining, it could be from really simple things to, just knowing how things turn and stuff. And it was almost like just connecting people, even without the astrology, just to how we move in the cosmos,
Right.
which is, you know, at the base of things. And so, you know, then again, you know, many levels to that. So it's kind of introducing people to go further as well. And look, if you like what we're saying, or, you know, have a look at this and then go further. So,
Yes.
you know, that's kind of been our role and continues to be so, I suppose. But yeah.
I'm pleased to hear, I'm earnestly, I'm pleased to hear about your redoing the website now. It is a great time for that. You know,
Yes.
I'm doing the same thing just for my brand.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, you know, it's probably going to take 2 months.
60 days.
You know,
Yeah,
right. Exactly. But
Yeah,
it's a whole thing.
yeah. Well, you know, we had a hack earlier in the year, and then we kind of never knew that if we'd get our Facebook page back, but of course we have got it back and stuff. But it was that sort of threat to sort of kind of go, well, you can't rely on something, so security's been amped up on the website. There's a few glitches going on because people can't get in because the security's too tight. And, you know, kind of dealing with all that type of thing. And then but it's been getting bigger and stronger, and even without our Facebook reach, the rankings are going up because Agent 64 is doing a great job. So yeah, it is a good time. It is a good time. Oh, well, I better let you go, Adam. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Again, we could talk forever. we could talk forever.
And I really look forward to anything we want to do.
Doing more with you for sure.
Yeah.
So everyone out there, also thanking you, and we'll put the links up under the chats here to connect to Adam. And then we'll keep in touch, and we look forward to the next episode with you, Agent 46.
Indeed, the next
So
episode.
everyone enjoy. Well, make the most of this incredible kind of timing, as we're saying here with this rare Mars retrograde, really. So and all the best. Keep cool, and we'll see you later on.
Agent 46 signing off.
Agent 12, see you next time. All right. Are you still there? Okay, thanks for being online, everyone. Adam, did you just go? Someone's playing I think he's left. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop this now, and we will connect back up another time. Hope to see you again soon. See ya.